Hi and welcome to this video. In this video we're going to use a combination of Autopsy and we're going to use Access Data Registry Viewer to work through some of the Windows Registry artifacts that you can find as part of a digital investigation. So we'll be using Autopsy to export some of the files contained within the hard drive image out to our local file system so that we can examine them without causing damage to the original hard drive image. If you haven't already done so, you'll need to locate and download the lego.dd hard drive image file and ingest it accordingly within Autopsy. We've covered this previously in other videos, and if you haven't done this as yet, then I recommend that you go back to those videos and revisit those and ingest the image accordingly. So the Windows Registry is made up from a number of files. So when you actually look at it through regedit, you'll see a continuous list of the various hives associated with the various components of the operating system. They're actually individual files that they are loaded at boot time into memory and manipulated through via accessing and writing to these individual files. So the first thing we're going to do is within Autopsy, and you can see I've already launched Autopsy and I've got it sitting there, and you can see that I've already ingested the lego.dd hard drive image. So I'm going to go up to my data source and I'm going to go in through the File Explorer view and I'm going to expand data sources, and you can see the arbitrary name is given to the host of the hard drive that this belonged to. And we're going to expand that, and then we're going to expand the lego.dd data source. And this gives you a Windows File Explorer view of the disk image that you can navigate and examine the file system as though it was a local file system. So we're going to expand users, and we're going to find the user NUC, N-U-C. So I click NUC, and you'll see in the right hand side on the details pane, you've got an upper pane and a lower pane, but the right hand side is called the details pane. And we're going to scroll down in here and we're going to find the file ntuser.dat, and that's one of the files that make up the Windows Registry, and we're going to right click that and we're going to select extract file, and it's going to ask us where we want to save it. The default is going to be to the export file located within the base directory of your case files. So I'll click save, and that successfully extracted that file. So the next place we want to go to obtain the rest of the registry, because that's just one part, is we now want to go and expand on the left hand side in the evidence tree. We want to select Windows. We want to scroll down until we find System 32. And we want to scroll down, and you'll find eventually you'll see config. And located within config are an additional 5 files that we need to extract. So the first one is called default, and it has no extension. And you can see actually when I click on it that Autopsy is intelligent enough to recognize that it is a registry file, and you can see it's actually changed its view in the bottom pane of the details window, and you could actually start browsing it in situ. For this workshop, we're going to use Access Data Registry Viewer. So we're going to right click the default and do the same, extract file. We're going to keep it going to the same directory, so we've got everything in one location. The next file we're going to look at will be security. I'll extract that. We'll save. Software. System. And the last one is SAM. So that's our 6 files that would constitute the Windows Registry extracted to a single location. And from there we can now start analyzing and looking at these various components within the registry. So to complete this workshop, you should have already downloaded and installed Access Data Registry Viewer. At the time of this recording, there were no free versions available. You can use it, but we'll need to use it in demo mode, because if you were to use it in any other mode, then it's going to start looking for a key or a dongle of some description. So when we launch it, we'll stipulate that we're going to use it in demo mode. So once you've installed the registry viewer, launch it from the start menu. And you can see this is the error that it comes up saying that it can't find a network security device. And do I want to select no to run registry viewer in demo mode? So on this occasion, I'm going to select no. And here we have the registry viewer in demo mode. Now, in my testing in demo mode, it seems to do what we want it to do, so I haven't found any adverse side effects of running this in demo mode. So the first thing we're going to do is open the SAM database. So I'm going to select Open, and you can see I've done this previously and the path is already preset, but we're going to navigate to the export directory where we extracted all of those files. And you can see that it has the file there, SAM, and I'll select that and select Open. You can see the view has changed. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to expand our various hives. We're going to open SAM. We're going to look at the domain hive. We're going to expand that. We're going to expand the account hive. And we're going to expand and select users. So we're going to select the user ending in 14F. And then when I select it, you can see the various panes change their values. But one of the more important panes is this bottom left-hand side pane where it gives you the information of what that registry key actually represents. So the workshop asks you, take a note of the username. So the workshop asks you to go through each of the users on this system and take a note of the username and its description. So you can see this first one is a built-in account for administering the computer, and the username is administrator, and the username is administrator. So the second one is guest. The third one is the default account, which is used as a template for any other account. This is the WDAG utility, and it's used for updating and administering Windows Defender. And the last one is the username NUC, N-U-C, and you can see the information around this particular user. So as you can see, each user has a specific RID number. If I go back to the top one, which was administrator, you can see that has an RID unique number of 500. Guest has an RID unique identifier of 501, and so on. Default account 503. But interestingly, the NUC user commences at 1001. That should be interesting enough to draw a conclusion of something, but we're going to Google and work out what exactly that means. So here you can see I've Googled around and I've pulled up a web page, and it explains how the RIDs are issued, the value of the RID. So you can see here that Windows allocates RIDs starting at 1000 and above, and it stipulates that RIDs having a value less than 1000 are considered reserved and are used for special accounts. So by having a look at this, you can now determine which accounts are local accounts that have been generated by creating a new account, and those which are special and reserved accounts. The next thing we're going to look at, which is number 8, we're going to select the user ID with the last 3 digits of 3E9, which is the NUC account, N-U-C, and we're going to have a look at what the RID value is. We're going to look at the last logon time. We're going to make a note of that. So you need to understand that this is highlighting it in UTC time and not Western Standard Time. So you'd need to translate that for it to have any meaning. We can see the invalid logon count is 0. The last failed login time was never. And whether or not the account is disabled, so it's false, it's not disabled. But I'd hazard a guess that the invalid logon count and the last failed logon time are 0 and never respectively, because we can see that the password isn't required and the password change time and expiration time is never. So this means it's an insecure account and there's no password required to enter. The question 9 has asked, has the NUC account ever been used to log onto the computer? We can actually see from this registry key, we can see the last time that this user logged in. The short answer is yes, this account has been logged into, And the value just above that is the login count, which is 28. So this account has been logged in 28 times. As I said previously, you can go through each of the accounts and you can see which account is disabled. So disabled true. So the administrative account is disabled. The guest account is disabled, and so on. And you can tally that up in your own time. So now we're going to close the SAM database and we're going to open the system database. It's going to warn us, do we want to close it? Yes, we do. And now we want to open system. So now we're going to navigate and expand current control set 001. Control, we're going to select computer name and computer name. This will actually define to us what the actual computer or host name of this computer was in which this image of the hard drive was taken. Question 16 asks us to scroll down to the time zone information. So we scroll down and we see time zone information. And this is telling us that it's in West Australia Standard Time. What do you think that might be important? As part of a digital investigation, you should take note of this and keep a record of that. But with respect to all the other files and other bits of evidence located throughout this hard drive, why do you think that the time zone declaration might be of significance? So that being said, we're going to go back up to control set 1. We're going to close control and we're going to have a look at enum. We're going to scroll down to USB, and these are all the various devices that have been plugged into the machine whilst it was actually operating and running. By selecting each of the devices that were plugged into the various ports, you can see when the last written time was and determine when files were written to that device. Again, make note that it's in UTC. So we'll close the USB hive up, we'll close up enum, and within the current control set 001, we're going to select mounted devices. So in the details pane on the right hand side, you can see all of the devices that were allocated a drive letter. So that being said, we're going to close this file now, and we're going to open up the ntuser.dat file. So yes, we do want to close this file, ntuser.dat. And the question is discussing that we'll just simply click edit and go find, and we want to type in the username NUC and let the registry viewer go through the whole user components of the registry and find everything that has the word NUC in it. So menu command, NUC, in menu command it would have found, so we'll just click, so we'll press F3 again just to bypass that and go forward. So you can see it shows environment variables that this user had, or this account had. So it had a OneDrive account. You can see that it's recent in its recent files, it's downloaded a file to this directory, and that was the file name, intel.jpg. So you can keep going through here and just clicking find for a specific key and bring up all sorts of interesting information. So this is a quick overview on how to use the Access Data Registry viewer, and you can go through in greater detail and answer the questions within this worksheet that are being asked specifically of you. But this short video should have actually shown you how to navigate and how to go through those various hives. So for the time being, we're going to close the Access Data Registry viewer, and we're going to bring up Autopsy again, and we're going to have a bit of a play with the timeline feature within Autopsy. So again, this is assumed that you've already done your ingest. We're simply going to click Timeline button up the top and launch the timeline feature. So what you're presented with is a bar chart of all the events that have taken place on this system since its inception. And you can see over here in the filters that the colors actually mean something. So green means miscellaneous, and you can expand that and see what miscellaneous actually means. Yellow means web activity, and you can expand that and see what specific items that means, and so on. So each color has a specific unique meaning that you can drill down to and explore. So interestingly, you can see that web activity was specific in 2019, whereas previous to that it was simply file system activity and miscellaneous, which includes such things as backup ends, backup begin, Bluetooth, and so on and so on. So what we want to do now is we want to zoom in. There's a couple of ways you can zoom in. You can actually select the timeline with the mouse cursor and just drag, and that'll highlight sections in blue. Now when you double click that, it'll zoom in to that zoom view that you selected with the mouse Or the other option you can do, which is what we're going to do, is we'll go back out to our extents and we're just simply going to double click 2019. So now we've zoomed into 2019 and it's showing us our months within that year that we have double clicked and selected and zoomed in on. So you can see that the web activity is yellow and the yellow component appears only in 1 month. So we're going to zoom back out now to our extents, and when we select the various components on this bar chart, we'll actually get greater detail of what's happened during that period. So we can select the green component, and in the bottom section of the details panes, we can see the document was created, and we can see what that document name was, and we can work our way through the list and see what the events were that took place that have been logged by Windows that Autopsy is now revealing to us. So you're welcome to have a play with this. The timeline feature within Autopsy is quite powerful, and as I said, you can zoom in to various custom timelines, or you can zoom into a specific timeline that you have an interest in, and we can see that 2019 appears to be the most relevant, but you'll need to decide that for yourselves. And we can zoom in on, and I've double clicked and selected the web activity in April, and you can see that it's highlighted the specific web activity from a high level, and then we'll look at drilling down by selecting each of those things, and we can see what was actually done during that time period. So it's something that you should have a play with and try and get an understanding of, because it can be very powerful and it can help you out a lot. The other thing you can also do is, as I said, apply these filters so that as you're going through in your evidence tree and you're tagging and assigning bookmarks to the various pieces of evidence in the details pane that you find, you can actually select must be tagged, in which case only tagged evidence will appear on your timeline, giving you a much finer, specific, granular view of your evidence. And these are just some of the files that I tagged earlier as part of the demonstration, and we can zoom in on that. So that covers our timeline component with an autopsy. So now we're going to close this and we're going to look at modify, access and create times of files. So what we're going to do now is we're going to open up Notepad. We're just going to type a few random characters and we're going to save the file to our desktop. And we'll call it Mac for modify, access and create times.txt. And you can see that file there on the video. So what we're going to do now is we're going to right click that file and go properties. So you can see that each file on the system stores the create, modified and access time. So you can see now under properties in the general tab that you can see the creation date, the modified date and the access date. And that's important to keep in mind when you're going through as an investigator looking for components of digital evidence and looking for timestamps in which something was accessed or modified to prove or disprove a theory that you may or may not have. So I can now open that file and I can change it and I'll save it. And now when I look at the properties, you can see that the modified date has changed from the original, as to has the access time. So these are the file attributes that most operating systems have and track, and you can use to your advantage as a digital investigator. So the create date will never change, but the modified and access dates can and do change. So the last thing I wanted to show you within Autopsy is you can, within Autopsy and the File Explorer view, going through the data source, if you can navigate down to the user's username, app data, roaming, Microsoft, Windows, recent, you can see a whole raft of files that have been recently opened or accessed that you can use as part of your investigation. And there's a wealth of knowledge here if you just know where to look. Okay, so look, that's been a quick rundown on this module, and that should be more than enough for you to go through your worksheet and answer all of the questions that have been asked of you. I've answered some for you, but you should have been shown sufficient information in which to garnish the information yourself and be able to answer the worksheet successfully.